Ivory Innovations. And we are based up here at the University of Utah at the David Eccles School of Business. And we're really excited to talk today about what we've been working on in terms of housing innovation. And I just wanted to start by telling a little bit about our story and why we got started. And so I think we have some slides maybe, and I'm hoping they're pulled up and shared with you. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just kind of the general idea behind this. And I have spent a bit of time working in impact investing and really the importance of investing in a way where you can create a positive social impact while generating a return, and kind of looking at those different projects. And as we kind of got more into the projects, you know, my family and my dad, Clark Ivory, who runs Ivory Homes, he just really started focusing on a few different social issues that he thought that he could help with. And so it was kind of a great pairing to bring the experience that I'd had with this impact investing together in with what Clark is passionate about and what the company is passionate about, which is housing affordability at this moment. And it's great because it's really fun to have a background in housing and to be able to work with an issue that hits so close to home, literally, for everyone who is involved in it. And I think, we've spent a lot of time around this issue, researching it and really understanding that there's a huge problem right now with the cost of housing outpacing this, the increase in salaries and a lot of different things that have happened. And, even now with COVID, it's become and may become a lot worse. And so that's kind of a little bit of how we all were started. And so that's the group Ivory Innovations, if you flip to the next slide, that we started at the University of Utah. And then this is just Clark, who kind of had the founding idea for what we could do with within Ivory Innovations. And he's very passionate about, providing and bringing in this, idea of housing affordability and how we can reach that. And so I just kind of wanted to outline the call or this webinar a little bit today and talk about a few people who will be presenting on the call. And so after I speak, we'll have Kent Colton on the call, and Kent currently serves as the chairman of Ivory Innovation. So our group, we've built a fun board, and he is also president of the Colton Housing Group and a senior research fellow at the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. Prior to this, Kent was the CEO of the National Home Builders Association. So we're looking forward to hearing from Kent today. And then also Clark Ivory, my dad, he'll be on, and he's the president and trustee of the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation, as well as the CEO of Ivory Homes, and really the person who had the idea to initiate Ivory Innovations. And so kind of, if we can flip to the next slide really quick, one thing that we were talking about and why we initiated everything was this housing gap. And right now, when we did this research and we built this slide, it was quoted at, 430,000 units we're short that many units across the country. Interestingly enough, Freddie Mac has rolled out a lot of data saying that there are about 3.2 million households, I believe, that or 3.3 million unit shortage right now, and that it's only getting worse. And so that's, the most recent data that's come out. So this 450,000 people were skeptical that it was high, and it might have been low. And so we never quite know, but we do know that we have a huge issue with housing and maintaining and preserving that affordability, which in turn helps us to maintain our middle class, which is very important for the country and the economy. And, we talk about housing affordability in a way just so that that we're looking at how do we make housing more affordable for the median income earner. But then that can also, we drop down and look at a lot of different issues that directly affect homelessness, but also trying to relieve a little pressure on those systems that are really helping those low income earners by focusing on the median income earners as well. And so that's been a big focus of ours. And so I just want to talk a little bit about Ivory Innovations, who we are and what we do. Ivory Innovations has a fabulous advisory board that we've pulled together with experts from across the country. And I think this is really important to us, really understanding what people are thinking and doing, and bringing those ideas back to the state of Utah, because we care about preserving affordability across the country, but we really care about preserving that affordability here in Utah. And just to mention some of these people who are on our advisory board, it includes Clark and Kent, who obviously will be joining us on this call, as well as Carol Galante, who is the head of the Turner Center up at Cal Berkeley, which is a center for affordable housing or housing affordability and urban policy. Also Chris Herbert, who's the managing director of Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. Lori Goodman, who's the VP of Housing Finance Policy and the director of the Housing Finance Policy Center at the Urban Institute. Our own Natalie Gochner, who runs the Kemsey Garner Policy Institute. We have a media partner in Hanley Wood and John McManus, who's the VP editorial director for residential articles there. And then Ryan Smith, who is the director of Washington State University's School of Design and Construction, and is one of the preeminent kind of minds on modular construction in the country. He's a really fabulous expert on that there. And so we feel really lucky to have this board of people that have come together to think about the issue of housing affordability. It's so fun to get in the room with them, where everyone is talking about the things that, matter to them, that they think are important. And as we analyze and look at these companies and problems, it's just the best discussion to kind of get going. And I think as we started building out this board and this process and realizing that we have like a lot of well-established people who are focused on the problem, we're thinking about it in terms of innovation and how can we really start making and creating changes in the industry. And so we're based out of the university, and what is more innovative than students and student involvement? And so we've spent a lot of time getting students involved here at the university to kind of understand the issue and work to solve the problem. My favorite initiative that we run is something called Hack a House, and that's pictured here, some of the teams that have participated in Hack a House the last few years. And this is such a fun program. It's actually been picked up by a lot of our partner universities, and we will run it at the University of Utah, as well as at Washington State University and a few, Cal Berkeley, and Harvard is also joined on. And Hack House is fun because it's a 24-hour brainstorming challenge where students are given an issue, which is the issue of housing affordability, but we get a little more specific, and they have 24 hours to solve it. And then we give them prize money, which has really been fun. And it's really great to just sit down with these students and watch them solve these problems. They come up with the most creative and interesting solutions on how they can, better use land. That was a solution that we got in Washington State, how farmland could better be utilized and to help preserve affordability in Pullman, Washington. And, they design a lot of really interesting things. And then we have, we've had a few companies or students actually try to start companies based off ideas that have come through the Hack a House program. And it's been really exciting to see those students. This year, because of COVID, Hack a House is going online, which will be really fun. If anyone wants to participate or knows anyone, we'll send stuff out on that. But it's probably, it's just a really fun thing to be involved with. We bring, judges in, and this year, all of the students from Ivory University will be competing at once. So A lot of these universities are really excited. We have 5 partner universities signed up right now, including the University of Utah, but we'll pull in all affiliates around BYU, Utah State, everywhere else. And this year, because we don't have to pay for the program as much, we're giving, or for like the in-person food and everything, we're giving out a bit more prize money. So if anyone has any students that would be interested, we will send out links for that. Our second student initiative that we run at the University of Utah is a housing innovation lab. And this is a group of students that comes together. We spend a lot of time educating them on the problem of housing affordability and the different ways that you can tackle this problem. They spend a lot of time researching and evaluating different companies who are working to solve these problems, as well as government initiatives. They'll look at House bills. And the best part about this lab is that we're bringing together students from all disciplines. We'll have, MRED students or Masters in Real Estate Development, working together with policymakers or people who, some of these students have worked at city and county government, and you get some really interesting conversation going. We'll bring architects in the room to bring a perspective on design. We have undergrads and masters, and that's something that we really believe is important in solving innovation, is being able to understand all of the different perspectives. And so we really bring students together to help educate on other people's or other perspectives rather than their own, and then just the different ways that people are solving the problem and help try to spark ideas of how they could solve the problem. And then we also run an internship program with these students where we have a lot of fun, and those students really get in the weeds with companies that come through our kind of main initiative, which is called the Ivory Prize. And I'm going to move the discussion to Kent to kind of discuss the Ivory Prize today and what we are doing and what we're focused on, and talk a little bit about last year, what we've learned, and kind of the things that we have moving forward. Because that's, the best part about the Ivory Prize is that we're able to pick up a few different trends in what's happening in terms of what companies are being started, which government initiatives are actually really being pushed forward, and everything else. And so I will kick it over to Kent to kind of take you through the learnings from the Ivory Prize. Hopefully. Maybe.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I will begin to talk. First of all, let me just say how pleased I am to be part of Ivory Innovations and to be part of this Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability process, to work with Clark, Ivory, and Abby. Also to be part of being able to talk to the Utah Housing Coalition. I've lived in the East for a long time now, but I was born in Utah, and so much of my love and heart is still there, and appreciate all the things that you're trying to do and how important the coalition is in terms of really addressing some of these issues. The Ivory Prize process has been really fascinating. Abby made reference to it. Clark is going to be on in a short period of time. Are you showing the finalists now, or no? You're showing me. Anyway, I'll just keep talking.
Yes, the slides are being presented. So the top finalists are being displayed.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and I'm not gonna talk about those per se. I'm gonna just talk about a couple of other things. So you can go ahead and take that down if you want. Thank you. Anyway, when Clark really kind of began the idea, he thought there was a lot of innovation going on around the country. He said, let's try this for a year and see if it works. And the bottom line is it's been a resounding yes. The first year, 126 nominations for the Ivory Prize from 28 different states. The second year, 168 nominations from 31 different states. And what we've really learned is there's just a lot going on at the grassroots level. And it's been very helpful to be able to see that. And it's been exciting to see what's going on around the country. In addition to that, what we sort of stepping back, once we realized this is something and it needs to be continually monitored and the prize is going to be ongoing, the question is, what are the lessons we've learned from that? And what we realized that if you look at the nominations, particularly then at the 25 finalists and the 10 finalists and the winners of the Ivory Prize, what you quickly discover is there are some patterns that are occurring. And out of that becomes a lot of interesting ideas in terms of the paths or directions that we might follow. There is no one answer to what Abby talked about, the housing shortage that we have, and obviously the serious housing affordability crisis that we have in the country. But what you learn from the Ivory Prize process is that one step at a time, there are solutions and there are directions and paths. And so in particular, we've identified 6 different directions or paths. And I'm going to quickly go through them and give you some illustrations with some of the winners of the Ivory Prize or some of the people over the last couple of years who have received recognition as a part of the top 25 or the top 10. The first one is to recognize that number one of the most important things that can happen, and this is where the Utah Coalition comes in, is to remove the barriers that exist at the state and local level, which really add to the cost of housing. 25% of the cost of building a new house comes from the regulatory side. Over 30% of the cost of multifamily housing comes from all of the regulations that exist. If state and local governments can focus on what they can do to do that, and if the private sector can help them in that process, that would make a huge difference. And especially with COVID-19 and the shortage and everything else that's happening, the role of state and local government is especially important in terms of doing that. In that area, the winner this year of the Ivory Prize is a company by the name of Symbium. And we have a video that we're going to play now that gives you a 3.5-minute demonstration of the great work that Symbium is doing. If we could go to that now, that would be great.
Hey, the video isn't playing, Abby.
I know, I'm not running it. Sorry.
Should I just go ahead?
Yeah, it looks like that it's not going to run.
So Symbium is a fascinating company. I'll just tell you a little bit about them initially. this sort of comes out from artificial intelligence and what's going on in Stanford. They have figured out, this private sector company, a way to automate the process, to develop a computer platform that will in essence help state, but especially local governments, be able to identify in their planning code who is going to qualify for an accessory dwelling unit, a small dwelling unit. And they have in essence been able to work with Los Angeles and San Francisco and Santa Barbara, and to be able to, with this system, be able to get the approval process down from what was potentially 6 months or more to 30 days, so that people can know whether they can qualify for an accessory dwelling unit. And I know you're looking at that in Utah now, and to be able to have the technology in the planning department to let that process work. So clearly it's a fascinating company. I wish you could see the video. They have great enthusiasm in terms of what they're doing, and all of the people who were involved in the judging process said, wow, this is a technology that can make a difference at the local level to help local governments be able to, first with respect to accessory dwelling units, but then clearly in other areas to be able to improve the approval process so that it can be more automated and therefore faster and less red tape in terms of what's involved. So they're the winners of the Ivory Prize related to regulatory this year. In addition to that, though, what we discovered, there's so many things that are going on around the country with respect to regulatory reform, that particularly two areas, one local government, Minneapolis, and one state government, the state of Oregon, have done some creative things with respect to, in essence, eliminating single family zoning. And I go again in Utah, there's a lot of talk about how can we do affordable housing. And what they've done in Minneapolis is they basically said, we're doing away with single family zoning. And so there'll no longer be single family zoning. If you're single family zone now, you can either have single family, a duplex, a triplex, or in fact, a quadruplex of 4 units that can go up. And in Oregon, what they've said is for communities over 20,000, we will allow 1 to 4 units to be built, and additional allow cluster zoning. And so going forward, in essence, the state of Oregon has said that we're going to take responsibility to, in essence, oversee what's happening at the zoning level, at the local level, and in fact, to override local zoning and to make it, in essence, doing away with single family zoning. Fascinating opportunity to see if this will really make a difference and able to provide more affordable housing. Related to that, they've built in both of these areas new coalitions. Again, that's where the Utah Housing Coalition comes in, so that in order to do this, they've been able to bring not only the development community and the people in the community who want to have more affordable housing, but they've also been able to get people who are concerned about social justice and other kinds of issues to get involved in that process, and made a difference. Let me move on to the second area, and I'm going to do this quickly because we want to have some time for discussion. But the second area is that let's increase housing construction through innovation and technology to build faster, increase productivity, and lower costs. And every year we've had a number of nominees who are doing exciting things. And this year, the winner is a company by the name of Entekra. And I assume that the video is not going to work there.
I think we might get it to work, so let's try really fast. Maybe the sound won't work. You know. Okay. It looks like the sound's not working, but we can just post all these videos, or they can send out the videos so that it works. And so Kent, you can just continue. We'll post the videos later.
That's great. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
You're good to go. Thanks,
Great,
sir.
good. So Entekra basically builds homes in the factory. They're very proud of their process. They can bring down the cost of building a house by at least 20 to 30%. And the most importantly is they can do it faster. They can assemble a house on site in 4 days. And that obviously has to do with both cost and other factors. So they're doing some amazing things. Last year, we awarded the Ivory Prize winner to this. Entekra does single family zoning. Last year, we awarded the Ivory Prize to a company called Factory OS, who is doing fascinating work with respect to multifamily. And again, the use of technology to improve construction. The third area, and I'm going to go through these all fairly quickly now, is the area of finance. And there, what we're talking about is utilizing creative financing approaches to allow more people to qualify for a mortgage and to buy a home and to provide more affordable rental housing. And the winner of the Ivory Prize related to finance this year is a company by the name of Rhino. They're in New York City. And what they've basically done is they've developed a system whereby they work with landlords to, instead of having the landlord charge, what a tenant normally has to put down a deposit, and that can be significant. And for some people, that's more than they can afford, to provide for insurance for the landlord so that if anything happens that would be an issue related to the deposit, that the landlord will be able to collect from the insurance company. And rather than paying a significant deposit that might be $2,000 or $3,000 in New York, you're talking about $5 a month to get the insurance to do that. That's proven to be very well. They've now franchised this. They're going nationwide. Fascinating work that they're doing with Rhino. The year before, the Ivory Prize had two winners, co-winners. One was doing lease to own, and another, Home Partners of America in Chicago, and another was basically doing a shared equity mortgage, starting first with teachers in Northern California, to in essence say that if they will put up, Landed will put up 50% or 50% of the cost of the mortgage, and in California, you're talking about, or excuse me, the down payment, you're talking about a down payment that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then Landed will get their money back when that home is sold, or when it's refinanced, and they will get 25% of the appreciation in that process. So wonderful, wonderful things happening to creatively look about what's happening in the finance area. The fourth area is to assist renters to improve their financial position and credit scores, and to help them achieve home ownership through innovation and technology. And again, interesting things happening in that area. Of course, we've already talked about Rhino, which is an assistant to renters. But in addition, one of the top 10 finalists in 2020 was a company called Diggs, which is located in Chicago, which helps owners understand and go through that home buying process. And they've helped to automate that. They've provided tools for owners to understand the sort of trade-off between renting and owning. And it's really been very creative as far as providing tools for the renters who are potential owners and want to become owners. The fifth category, where we've seen a pattern, which is a very important one, is innovative use of lots in existing housing to provide greater housing opportunities to meet the nation's housing demand and to increase income for homeowners. In other words, if you go back to what Abby was talking about, we're talking about a shortage of housing. One way is obviously to build more housing, but this fifth pattern is people that are out there that are doing ways to talk about utilizing existing housing and utilizing existing space on existing housing in order to provide additional home ownership. We've had a number of groups that over time have helped out in doing ADUs, at what we talked about before, accessory dwelling units. Another category that's been fascinating, and one of the top 25 Ivory Prize winners in 2020 is a company called Star City in San Francisco, and they do co-living so that individuals can have their separate apartment, but then shared space that they will use. So it's more efficient in terms of providing more people with the opportunity for having a home. And another one that I think is particularly fascinating is one of our top 25 finalists in 2019, which was a company in Boston called Nesterly, where they basically, in Boston, you've got a lot of students, you've got a lot of people who are, in essence, looking for housing. And then you've got a lot of elderly folks who are interested in company. And so what Nesterly has done is match the elderly homeowners with the students to provide space for these students, apartment units or units within their house. And that mix has worked very well. And now they've basically are expanding that to other cities around the country. So again, how can you utilize the existing space to make it more effective? The final topic that we've been fascinated to see going on so effectively around the country is preserving and producing affordable housing in neighborhoods, and including the people in that neighborhood to help strengthen that community. The first year, there was wonderful work going on with a group called Century Partners in Detroit, working with the local neighborhood and communities to improve that community and give residents in that community a chance to both work on the new projects that they were doing and the rehab that they were doing, and eventually to become owners. And then one of the contestants, which was in the top 10 this year, which everybody, the judges all liked, is a group called Rock USA. They're located in Concord, New Hampshire. They've been recognized for the work that they've done, but they work with mobile home communities. That's one of the ways that you can provide affordable housing for people. But what they've done is they've figured out a way in mobile home communities, for the individuals in those communities, the participants, the owners, or excuse me, the renters of the mobile homes, to be able to own their home and to set up, if you will, a co-op type structure so that they're able to become resident-owned communities. And that's where the acronym ROC comes from. And they've set up over time 256 resident-owned communities and made it possible for 17,248 manufactured home renters to become owners. And I've done some amazing work in terms of improving the quality of those mobile home neighborhoods and to make them a success over time. So what's been interesting to recognize in the Ivory Prize process is there is not, as I said before, one magic solution, but there are multiple solutions. And through looking at the nominees, looking at the award winners, looking at the people who are in the top 25 and the top 10, you can develop patterns. And we've recognized these 6 areas where you can set about to make a difference with respect to housing affordability, one step at a time. So it's been a great effort for all of us who have been involved in the process. And as you can see, we're very enthusiastic about what we've discovered. I'm going to turn it now, I think, to Clark.
Thank you, Kent and Abby. Appreciate everybody. Innovation is definitely the key moving forward. And I hope that Utah will be willing to not only try some new things, but get these cities to not just put forward plans, but to actually execute on them. Even our biggest cities that are most open to these ideas have been pretty slow to implement a lot of them. So innovation is the key, but we also have to have courage as communities to really make some of these changes happen. So It's brief. We appreciate the presentations today. I know we have a small group tuned in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll sign off. All right, we're going to sign off. Thanks,
I think
Ken. Have a great week.
Clark, we had one question at the beginning that was talking about a study that reports that people in Utah spend more than 45% of their income on rent. Is that rent to income ratio too high? What is the preferred ratio, and what steps can Utah take to achieve that? So the typical ratio would be above 30% is what people should be paying. And once it gets above that, it becomes less and less likely that they're going to make their payments. But you can answer that.
No, I think that you're right. It is an issue. We don't have the same stress on affordability that these coastal areas have yet, but we're getting closer to them. So it is something that we have to pay attention to. It's something that Jim Wood is tracking. And it's become very concerning because housing is far less affordable now in Utah than it was 10 and 20 years ago. And that's the trend that gets us most concerned. So we need to focus on that. But thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody. Let's go do something. Thanks, Kent. Enjoy the lake.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ivory, Mr. Colton. Abby, thank you for a fantastic presentation, and we apologize for not being able to show the videos through the live webinar. I guess I have to get more training on how to run all of those things. There's one more question that came through the YouTube channel, and it's coming from Ives Garcia. Ives is a professor at the University of Utah, and her question is, can you point out some empirical evidence that new non-single family homes equivalent by square feet and neighborhood amenities are more affordable to the consumer?
Say that one more time. I didn't say it one more time.
So it's listed in the chat. So her question is, can you point to some empirical evidence that new non-single family homes equivalent by square footage, and number two, and neighborhood amenities are more affordable to the consumer?
So the question is, can we show any empirical evidence that new homes are more affordable?
Yes.
We can show evidence to the contrary. New homes are more expensive. You know, simply put, but that's why it's so important that we continue to work on technologies and innovations that will help new homes be more affordable. Obviously, the most affordable housing is older existing housing, and that's very important that we work on different methods to preserve it and to make it more sustainable, because that's a far more affordable solution. And we are engaged in that, and we see a lot of good coming from that. But the new housing stock that needs to come on, we need to focus on affordability. No question.
Thank you. One more question. Given that evictions are increasing, have you seen any innovative solutions that could ameliorate this crisis?
I can answer one thing that I've seen, and there's a company that we worked for. I actually was talking to their CEO yesterday, or worked with. It's called Do Not Pay, and it's really interesting. So like looking at evictions and the numbers across the country, Utah isn't going to see a significant jump right now. We would have already seen that, but other states definitely will, depending on where you are and the different restrictions, what's happening with all of this stimulus ending. But what's interesting, in order to kind of like figure out your area and what's going on, what tenants' rights you have, there is this app or website called Do Not Pay, and they initially were started to like help figure out different things like parking tickets and different things, but they are someone that where you can go and look and figure out what the restrictions are in your area. I think it's like Do Not pay.com, and figure out what resources can help. And they kind of are a legal platform for the common man, and they're free. It's a free model unless they help you get money back. That's they'll charge you $3. But it's a really interesting place to go look for help in that. And then I think Michael Parker has a comment, and I don't know if he's on. Michael, if you want to respond to that too.
I think Chris can speak to it because he's on the commission to help put that together.
Yeah, happy to. We have not seen evictions increase. In fact, evictions are substantially less this year than they've been historically in Utah and elsewhere. The eviction moratorium, there were a couple of different ones. One at the state level that expired some time ago was just an overall eviction moratorium. That has expired. There is $20 million that was set aside by the legislature that came in the CARES Act funding that is now being used. It's because the unemployment assistance ran out at the end of July, and we didn't want to stack two funds together. So while the additional unemployment assistance was being distributed, the extra $600 a week, that it was the intent that would pay, people would pay rent with that. Now that that's gone, there is some rental assistance in the form of $20 million. But it is a fallacy to say that evictions are up. In Utah, they're down about 60%.
I would also just comment that there's dialogue now. I think that the federal moratorium on evictions is going to be extended by Congress once there's back and forth, but there will eventually, I think, be an agreement. But a lot of it, I think, is for renters to communicate with the landlords and to really try to let them know what the process is. Because I know a lot of landlords are sympathetic, but at the same time, they have bills to pay. So it's a matter of trying to talk together.
Absolutely. And additionally, we at Utah Housing Coalition have worked really hard to put a lot of resources together since the pandemic started. So all of them are available on our main webpage at utahhousing.org. And we also listed a number of videos on our YouTube channel that is basically breaks down in 4 chapters, the renter toolkit guide to help renters, figure out their rights and being a tenant, and if they get eviction notice, what they have to do, and so on. And I would also like to add that Utah Housing Coalition is we're having our annual housing conference beginning of September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And of course, we're going to be a virtual event. And along the workshops we're going to have a rural track, we're going to have a construction and design track, and also legal resources for renters, mediation. So we are very excited to see our affordable housing developers talking about different way to build housing that is less expensive. So we love to invite all of you to attend that conference, as it will be very informational. Again, thank you so much. This is great. I can't believe that there's so many people, great people in this panel. And Tara, if you have any other questions, them or?
No, I just want to thank you as well for, participating. We have, I can't remember how many people registered for this, and they're watching through YouTube. And, really thank you so much. And we'll have this up and on our YouTube channel, and make sure that people are understanding, the efforts that are being made, in our community. And I can't thank you enough for, what you guys are doing and pulling ideas together, because, we always say it's not one silver bullet, it's going to be many different ideas, but we also need to all, work together to, make changes, on the ground level and working with our cities and towns. So again, thank you so much for, bringing these tools to our community.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Thanks.